Andy Dunn is a serial entrepreneur and the co-founder of Bonobos. So his company Bonobos went on to be a huge pioneer in the e-commerce space. The company was acquired by Walmart for $310 million, which is wild. And Andy has since wrote a book called Burn Rate, Launching a Startup and Losing My Mind. He's a huge advocate for managing mental health while starting a successful company. He has a new company now called Pi, which we're going to talk a little bit about as well. Andy Dunn, welcome to Bossy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to play a game with you today. It's called 10 Questions for a Boss.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you 10 questions. We'll go through. We can kind of dig into each one, but I've got 10 specific questions for you. I'm going to hit you with an easy, fun one first, okay?
Okay.
What is one song on your playlist that boosts your confidence before a meeting?
Oh, before a meeting.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by AT&T Business. Working with them has really made me think about all of the ways that technology impacts my company as a small business owner. My personal team is fully remote. We're spread across 6 different locations, and we really rely a lot on remote working tools to stay connected. We use all kinds of things like payroll services and compliance tools, video conferencing, and project management software. These remote working tools, they're literally what keeps us all on the same page. Visit att.com/y-att-business to see how they can help you better leverage technology to boss up your business.
One of the things that pumped me up the most when I was once introduced to go onto stage,
Yeah.
which I didn't anticipate, is actually one of my favorite songs, which is it's a collaboration between Jay-Z and Linkin Park called Numb.
Yeah.
And there's a verse about coming back wearing the 4-5, which is an allusion to when Michael Jordan came back wearing the number 45.
Yeah.
So as a Chicago sports fan and a Chicago kid,
it gets you going.
That gets me going.
Oh man, we should have played that in the intro to our podcast to get you going here. Okay, got it. That's a good one. Next question, second question. I heard that when you were running Bonobos, you were starting on like a $3,000 bank account balance and had maybe like $150,000 in debt. What were some of the personal sacrifices that you made in that early stage of entrepreneurship?
I think it was just feeling confident about my own financial situation.
Okay.
You know, I think that it does take a leap of faith when you have $150,000 in debt to think, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to find a way through it. And for me, the big turning point was I took a trip to Kenya and Uganda, and I lived with a family there just for a few days in a clay brick house. And you kind of dump the cold bucket of water over your head in the morning, and goats and children are running around the yard.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking it is a dishonor to people who are living hand to mouth, both in this country and in other countries, to think that a Stanford MBA is really taking financial risk.
Yeah.
Because it might be temporal financial risk, but at the end of the day, you've got a safety net and you've got a degree or a set of degrees you can fall back on.
Yeah.
So why not, if you have a little narrow window of something that you get to build or a spark of something, why not try it? Because you're not really taking true financial risk the way that people who are living in poverty and who are living paycheck to paycheck are experiencing. I was 28. I was single. I had no dependents.
Yeah.
I could crash on friends' sofas. I could find a job if I needed to. So I think it's more the perception of sacrifice from a financial standpoint than actual sacrifice.
That's so interesting. We had, I think it was Cody Sanchez who came on the show, and she was talking about like risk. And after a certain point, you're not really making like a humongous financial risk because you might have education to back you, and this is like after you're at a certain point in your career, right? You have education to back you, have knowledge to back you, you have maybe people that you could ask for help to back you. And so really it's like an ego risk. And we sometimes think about it as like a financial, like, oh, we're in financial trouble, but really some of it is like more ego. But this is so interesting to me because I think most people would think $150,000 in debt, that is financial stress. And you're saying, no, I put it into perspective. And in that perspective, I was able to look at it differently.
And I would build on that and actually invert it, which is to say, there is risk in not doing something that you love.
Yeah.
And I consider that risk to be spiritual.
Mm.
a risk in not coming alive every day. And so sometimes we frame it the wrong way, which is it's less risky from the vantage point of our soul.
Yes.
To do something soulful and that we love. And by the way, my view is if you're doing something that you truly love, that you would do in a world with no money, as I feel as an entrepreneur, the universe tends to reward that in a way you can't even imagine financially. And I remember 3 years in, when I made my first $1 million through selling some stock in Bonobos, I remember calling the Stanford Federal Credit Union and saying, hey, I'd like to retire that $150,000 in debt. And the guy said, well, how much? And I said, all of it.
Yeah.
And he was like, shit, someone had a good day. Yeah. And so it was just, if I'd had a job, I never would be able to have done that. I would be probably still be paying it down.
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur, you can have these bigger outcomes that reward that risk. So, and I know I was fortunate that it kind of worked out that way. I know there are stories that go a different way. But certainly it was special to feel rewarded for taking the financial risk and not having taken the spiritual risk.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I took out like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to go to university. I went to Columbia, and it was expensive. And I was able to pay all of that debt off from my entrepreneurship. And I always wonder, like, how would I have done this if I had a 9-to-5 job? Like, I can't even fathom how I would, to your point, still be paying it. So I get that there's sort of a trade-off and a payoff to like taking a temporary L so that you can get your big W later on down the road. I also have been thinking, like, my grandmother is 91 years old, and I hear her talk about things she wishes she had done. And it makes me really think about my own life and think, like, what are the things that I'm kind of stalling on, that I'm not doing, that feel risky, that feel like, oh, it might like dwindle my bank account, but I really want to do it. And it's a good perspective. Like, I like this view that you have of putting that all into perspective. It made me think about my grandmother, but also my own experiences of actually taking the risk.
I want to hear about your grandmother's wisdom before this podcast is over, so maybe we can get to that.
I mean, like, there's stuff like she wishes she learned sign language, or just like there's these little things, and I feel committed to go do those things that I have on my list to actually be in an active practice of leaning into desire, because if we want to be spiritual for a minute, like, desire is really important, what you're excited about, what you want to do.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So question number 3, I want to talk about your exit, because Walmart bought the company for $310 million. But I read somewhere that you didn't know it was going to be $310 million until towards the end. Is that true? How would they just tell you at the end how much they were going to pay you?
It wasn't true. I think I know what is true. So we knew where the deal was going to come out. Not too far into the process, because we had another offer. And there's this saying, companies are bought, not sold. And I feel like it's such BS. I feel like most companies are sold, not bought. Most companies, you have to make a decision to figure out someone that wants to acquire it, rather than these few blessed companies where the offers are coming inbound and everyone's trying to buy you. That wasn't my experience. So I knew from the upfront negotiations and the conversation that the deal was going to be in that range if we were going to do one, because we had spent a half a year and I talked to hundreds of people to get an offer in that range. What I didn't know about halfway through was the deal going to come to fruition?
Of course.
Because there were all kinds of challenges and steps along the way. And I had some mental health issues that I had to disclose that had some legal ramifications. So it was definitely scary to see if it would go through, but we did know up front from the early conversations that if it did, here's what the value would be.
Can you say a little bit about what happens during these processes? Because you're right, like, you don't know until the end. If you're going to sell your company, you don't know until the end if the deal is actually going to get signed and go through. And sometimes people change the terms midway while you're going through diligence. Do you have any context that you can share with listeners about, like, some of the things that do happen that kind of zigzag the process while you're in it?
Totally. I mean, the thing that I didn't fully appreciate is my counterpart on the Walmart side, who I was negotiating with, was absolutely phenomenal at her job. And so whenever I would get a phone call and I would see her name come up, I was like, okay, I'm about to lose another deal point. Because just because you signed, to your point, the letter of intent,
Yeah, that LOI.
it doesn't mean it's called intent, right?
Yeah.
It's an intent to do something which is different than here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so just for example, we had a trademark issue. We had the trademark for Bonobos, which is a cool name. It's make love, not war, peaceful chimpanzee that lives in the Congo, one of the 5 great apes. Most people don't know it. You have gorillas, chimps, orangutans, humans, and then bonobos, who I think are kind of a light to our future.
Okay.
Women run their societies. They have no violent conflict. They're a special animal. And we weren't the only people that thought they were special. There was a French brand with the same name, and they had staked out the trademark for all of Europe and Asia.
Got it.
So when our acquirer found out, wait a second, your international expansion is totally haircut by the trademark situation, and by the way, there had been litigation.
Maybe we don't want to buy it after all.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so then you have to sell it again. You have to kind of resell it and explain why it still makes sense.
Yeah.
And those kinds of moments do come up during a process. And then there was the personal one, which is some of the mental health stuff I dealt with, and having to disclose that and not knowing, gosh, am I going to be the reason this falls apart?
Yeah.
Because of some of the issues that I've had.
I want to come back to that, but I have another question I want to ask you first, kind of on the Bonobos story, which is, tell me about a time where like everything was crumbling, falling apart. Like we're talking a lot about like the exit and the triumph of that. But early on, I'm sure there were moments where like things were crumbling and not working. Like what did you do to flip the script?
Yeah, I definitely feel that those moments would come up about once every 6 months, because Bonobos was not a company that was generating a lot of profits almost the whole way. We were always trying to find a way to raise more to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we raised 8 financing rounds over the course of the first 9 years. So we were raising money every year.
Yeah. It's
We
a full-time
only had 2
job.
of those 8 rounds that had a credible lead investor. So we were always patching together a cohort, kind of cobbling together a cohort.
Yep.
And we raised up from over 125 different investors over those 8 years.
Wow.
And over 80 investors the first 3 years.
That's a
So
lot of
it
people
was
in
a
your
lot of-
business.
It was a lot of rubber chicken dinners. It was a lot of people in my business. And like, frequently with no real compelling alternative to begging for these small checks.
Yeah.
Right. And so the scariest moment for me came in 2014. We had a brand that was doing 75 million of sales. We looked like a huge success from the outside because we were the pioneer of building brands digitally.
Yeah.
We had over 200 employees. And I felt all this pressure of like, what people don't realize is this isn't really a good business yet. It's a good brand. It's a pioneering model. We've raised money. Customers really like the brand. Our team loves working there. But I sat with our CFO and I said, look, how much do we really need, Brian? Like how much do we need to raise now? And he said, we probably need 75. I was like, wait, what? He's like, we probably need 75 million here. And just imagine, and I was like, and how long? And he's like, we need to close it in the next like 2 or 3 months. And so I went out and was doing, I mean, it wasn't like I just found that out. It's just the magnitude of it.
That's a lot of money in 2 to 3 months. Yeah.
I got a call on a Friday that we had burned 5 million of cash in 1 month. So it was the rate of burn was accelerating.
And you said it was 200 employees at this point. Because I think a lot of people hear 200 employees and they hear success. And I think a lot of people who are in the trenches as entrepreneurs are like, paying 200 employees, that's a whole responsibility there.
I remember being at a team happy hour and looking around thinking, none of these people know we're going under.
Yeah.
None of these people know we're going under. And by the way, we're actually spending money drinking. Like, why are we even doing this event? And why don't I have the courage to put a stop to this kind of spending? So that was a hard one. That was the hardest round we had to do. And, needless to say, because we're having this conversation, we found an investor that would put in 25 million. It was the last people that I thought were going to do it. It was a retail family out of Latin America. And then we found another 30 from our existing investors. And then we went and got a debt refinancing of 25. So we got the 75, but only a handful of people realized that we had no business being in business relative to that situation.
And did you end up decreasing some of the like size of the team or kind of costs to run the business at all during that period, or that stayed the same because you were able to raise the money?
This is something I really kick myself for. I never had the courage to do a downsizing or a restructuring. For some reason, to me, it was a sacred cow, the idea of doing a layoff, because I thought it would ruin the culture. And now that I've been, working in capitalism for 20 plus years, I still don't like it. I still don't really want to do it. Even at my current company, I'm like, I don't think I could do it because I get too attached to people.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know the person behind the person. And for me, I think in retrospect, it's one of those things where there's got to be a forest fire that burns through sometimes. Like you just are going to have to do a restructuring at some point to keep the company healthy for the future. And I didn't have the courage to do that. And that made the job harder because I think if we'd made some of those difficult decisions along the way, we wouldn't have been in as acute of financial crises that we were running into year in and year out.
Personally, almost all of my biggest entrepreneurship regrets are tied to not making a decision faster about downsizing team when the company downsized. And that sounds like, I think, such a strange thing to hear because like I love these people that work with me and like I really like them. I know their families, all that. But just from a business perspective, some of my biggest regrets have been not making that decision. And I always have to like hold my breath and like do the thing to make the decision when that has happened because it feels so icky. But afterwards, it feels like the most huge relief because entrepreneurship, I think we all have these moments where it's like, oh no, the plane is going to crash. Oh no, it's crashing. No, I got it. Wait, it's going to crash again. And that back and forth sometimes requires you to either raise more money or get more lean or both. I want to hear about how you like balance yourself though. So question number 5, what's one thing that you do to relax after a long day at work?
My joke to this question is typically like, I don't. And making sure that people are aware it's not a balanced job, right? If you want balance, don't start something.
Do something else.
If you want balance, probably don't join something that is fighting for its life. A company in the early days, it's like an infant. When you're a year or 2 or 3 years old, you need the disproportionate and distorting effort of the people that love you to survive infancy. Those people fundamentally are sacrificing their health and wellness and sleep and all of that. And starting a company is a lot like that. I do feel that it helps to be on the second rodeo because it's been easier to raise money and I have more perspective. I have a child now. I've got a wife. I have things that matter to me more than my company.
But what I'm hearing you say is
shut it off.
But I'm hearing you say that if you want to have a balanced life, don't do entrepreneurship, do something else.
Don't do it. People ask me about work-life balance who are joining the team. And here's what I say. I say, look, don't come if you want work-life balance. Come if you are in a season of your life where you are ready to make sacrifices for the benefit of your own development. You'll learn more here. You'll have the opportunity to earn more here. We build a valuable company together. But it's a trade. There's no free lunch here. And if you're not in that season, please don't come.
There's this viral
I specify it's 50 to 60 hours a week so people know exactly what I mean.
Yeah. There's this viral video of T-Pain where he's yelling like, do something else. Like, don't. He's talking about like all the rappers wanting to do the same thing. And he's saying everybody should do something else. But I'm here, like I can hear that voice in my head as you're like, if you want work-life balance, like do something else. Okay. Question number 6, true or false? This is a good segue. To be an entrepreneur, you have to be a little bit crazy.
True.
Say more.
A little bit. So coming out of my journey, what I learned is that there are people who are really dealing with a serious amount of crazy. Right. So what I deal with, bipolar type 1, 2% of the general population, 11% of the entrepreneurial population. That's 5 to 1. ADHD, 3 to 1. Anxiety, 3 to 1. Unipolar depression, 3 to 1. Sadly, suicide rates, much higher. Substance use rates, much higher. I also say there is a cohort of eminently sane, non-medicated people who are building great things, and let's not discriminate against them. But even the healthiest among them, you need a little bit of delusion to believe that you can do something that no one else has done.
And you think
so
those things like being ADHD or bipolar, they add to your ability to have the delusion that you need? Is that what you're saying?
I think for sure bipolar adds to it, because a symptom of it is grandiose thinking.
Yeah.
A symptom of it is a belief that everything is happening for a reason. A symptom of it is an accelerated patterns of speech and the flight of ideas. And sometimes a contagious, positive, and magnetic energy that enables you to attract people, attract customers, attract talent. And I like to say bipolar is an illness that undergirds greatness and seeks to destroy the bearer of that greatness at the same time. There's also a cost to it. And so the challenge for people like me, and I'll say like us, for people that are dealing with an issue that's similar or some other mental health, neurodiverse stripe that is a strength and weakness, is this stuff can totally undermine what you're trying to do too.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on like how you get it to be leaning on the side of helping more? Because I'm hearing you say that it also helps, it aids you in some ways.
I had to give up a lot of shit. I don't drink. I had to give up, working till 3 a.m. I try to get at least 6 hours, if not 8. I hate exercising, and I've learned to try to like it. I had a number of unhealthy things in my life, including my personal life. I was kind of running off the rails. I was a single man. I wasn't.
You're out here living.
And now, even just being in a monogamous relationship to someone that I'm committed to and married to, being a parent, right? Which just changes our sense of what's central in the universe. It's like I'm a planet orbiting around my sun now, where before I was the sun and burning really bright. So these changes have helped contain the neurodivergent stuff.
Okay. Question number 7, you sold Bonobos, but I know that you raised a lot of money. You just told us a story about raising a whole lot. So sold for $310 million, but raised a lot. Can you explain to someone who's not familiar what inevitable dilution, how that works?
I mean, the more dilution you take, the less you own. The more capital you raise, the less you own.
Yeah.
And it actually comes down to some moments where I had to go back to my board and say, hey, I need more equity. I need you to give me more equity because I'm getting diluted to the point that I don't really have an incentive. And by the way, I'd like some more equity for my team. And so you have to fight for these refresh grants, which is a way of saying you got to take back ownership as you go, because look, the business needs capital. And you don't want a CEO as an investor who doesn't have an incentive to go build the business. And those conversations can be really challenging because folks basically say, well, why should you get more? You're the one building this business that requires all this capital. We should take dilution together. And it's like, no, dude, like you're already rich. Like that's the difference.
and I need to be incentivized to be here and be busting my ass. Yeah,
he sat at a board meeting and everyone was pushing back on his refresh grant. And he looked around and he goes, you're worth 100 million and you're worth 100 million and you're worth 100 million and you're worth 100 million. Like you need to give someone like me a chance to be like you. And so give me that refresh grant. Now, I didn't do it that way, but I always remember that because it's kind of what happens. Like the battle between capital and labor is happening even to entrepreneurs at some stage. Like we become labor and the shareholders are capital. And just the way that labor needs to push back on capital for the working class to secure what's fair and what's just. Funnily enough, sometimes entrepreneurs and management teams and startup teams have to do the same thing.
Is there anything you wish you had done to be diluted less?
I mean, I wish I'd built a profitable business sooner.
Fair
Comes
enough.
back to our conversation of, I wish I'd kept the team smaller. I wish I'd been okay growing less quickly. Maybe I shouldn't have taken the same kind of venture capital and taken more capital that was perhaps more patient. I benefited from it because I got to innovate off of it. But I think I like a bootstrapper in the retail category. I think it makes a lot of sense to bootstrap and to take more time and build the company off of its own profits.
Yeah.
And I think in the long run, those businesses are often much healthier because they had the forced constraint of having to make money along the way.
And we're in such a climate now that is leaning towards cheering on bootstrappers much more than, for example, when my entrepreneurship journey started and it was kind of looked down upon. I think now that there's a little bit, I think it seems to be much harder to raise capital these days as an entrepreneur. And I think a lot more people, entrepreneurs I'm talking to, are turning to like, let me bootstrap, or let me think about profitability way earlier. So question number 8, do you currently or in the past have a little chip on your shoulder? That's often the thing that drives entrepreneurs and helps make their moves. Do you feel that at all?
Totally. I still have it. I still think about the people that say no.
Yeah.
You know, at my new company, when I went around to raise our Series A, like anything, most people said no. And I feel just as committed to proving them wrong as I did the first time.
Yeah.
Or I look at circles I don't have access to, and I'm like, I want to be in that circle. Yeah. And that circle just keeps getting more ridiculous, right?
Yeah, because the benchmark moves every time you accomplish the thing, then you want to get in the next circle.
Still driven by status the same way. In every circle, there's another circle. And I've just come to accept that I want to be in the next one. Like, I'm not a well-adjusted person who is comfortable with what he has.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not, it's just, I'm not.
That's not what you're doing in this lifetime.
No, I want more.
Okay.
I want more. And even with money, I have realized that money can't buy you stuff. Like, I don't necessarily want more stuff.
Yeah.
I do want a plane. My wife wouldn't be okay with the plane because of climate. But what I have realized is money is power in this world.
Yeah.
And so if you want power to make change,
yeah,
you got to have money for political giving. You got to have money to invest in people that are building stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to have money to give away to things that you care about. And so all that still
Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
It hasn't really changed.
Yeah,
it hasn't really changed.
Sorry, not sorry. Okay, question 9. What made you go from then running Bonobos, selling it, to running your new company? Like, what was the connection point? Like, I think about like Steve Jobs, like leaving Apple and going to work on Pixar, and there's this like connection point of like design and design centricity and double clicking on that. Like, what's the or if you see one, what's the connection point for you between Bonobos, your last company, and your new company, Pi?
Yeah, I think that when I came out of Bonobos and I got to write about my journey with mental health,
yeah,
I realized that was so meaningful. Like what I had done selling pants, in a way, although I think it contributed to male self-confidence, which is cool. And I think it contributed to an evolving way that men think about clothing. I don't think at least straight men were thinking about how their butt looked in pants the same way before Bonobos came along.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of that cultural evolution. And when I wrote the book, I felt like, you know what? That didn't matter that much to the history of the world. Like it was selling pants at the end of the day, selling menswear. And so once I got addicted to what it's like to do something that moves the needle for global mental health outcomes and understanding, I knew that if I built another company, I wanted it to have that why behind it. And so that's where we dove into tackling social isolation and loneliness, because it's a global crisis we have. And I knew I wanted to take everything I knew about building movements and building a consumer product to tackling a global mental health challenge next. And that's where that was the genesis of Pi.
That makes sense. Okay. Question number 10, which is also about Pi. Tell us about one thing that you tried while launching this company, this new company, that totally bombed. And give me one that totally worked. Give me both.
No, the bombed one is so fun because the company was built to tackle this loneliness and social isolation pandemic.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, which accelerated that.
Yeah.
We, like everyone, had a remote team. We fell in love with, this is the future of work. And then we spent a few years just wandering in the desert without the culture that I knew undergirded success. We didn't have that love for what we did and of each other, because that's hard to do on a screen.
It is, yeah.
And the product wasn't generating much momentum. We were stuck at no more than a few hundred users a day for years.
Wow.
And similar story, we raised money, we burned through it, not as much money. But I had a wake-up call at the beginning of last year. which was, this isn't going to work. And I even had one of my investors say, dude, just put it down. I was like, what do you mean put it down? He's like, companies don't work sometimes. In fact, in the majority of venture-backed companies, they don't work. And I was like, put it down. Like, there's nothing else I want to work on. And so we made a big move. And I said, hey, we're going to do this in person. I live in Chicago, so you got to come here. And I made an offer to everyone of a 90-day cash bonus to move to Chicago. 0 people took it. 0. Okay. And that was a learning for me of like, folks aren't that psychically attached to this. And it was a chance to get a do-over. And we started building an in-person team here in Chicago. They're all around me. We're here every day. Yeah. It's not hybrid. It's just like as if the pandemic never happened. And now we're cooking.
Got it. Were the people who were then remote, they're no longer on the team if they didn't come to Chicago?
They all went on to, I don't want to say bigger and brighter things, but the good thing about information workers in this economy is, a lot of job prospects.
That's right.
So they're all at this startup and that startup and this company. And so they all did great. And it just helped me realize, like, it is okay to make tough decisions. I would consider that one a restructuring. Yeah. And it changed our whole trajectory because this company wasn't going to work as a remote company. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. This is a really great conversation about like restructuring your team and organizing something that works for you. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.